My great interest is the mystery that we live in and the magic of it all. When I was a little boy, I used to run across the road into the forest, and I spent all my time with my friends in the forest and the river, and there was always a sense of the mystery, and somehow it feels to me like it's kind of disappeared somewhere. And so I want to have a look at what happened to that mystery. Why has it disappeared? I remember reading about a Western herbalist coming with an indigenous Native American herbalist, and they came to this valley, and the Native American herbalist said, let's just sit over here. And they were sitting for a long time, and in the end the Western herbalist said, what are we doing over here? We came to collect herbs, so why are we sitting here? He says, we first must ask permission from nature and the trees and the plants before we can actually enter into the valley. So we need to enter into this space with that kind of sense of, do we have permission? And how do we find out if we've got permission?
Do you have an answer?
What organs of perception do we have in order to hear the voice of nature? This herbalist was listening to something. At some point he got up and said, okay, we can go on. He had heard something.
Yes.
But what organ of perception was he using to hear that? Because we need to understand, if we're looking at this whole question of mystery and magic, how do we enter into that space in which the mystery and the magic talks to us? Every morning I go walking in the wetlands.
Yeah.
And there are two bushes there that I have friends with. And I stop and talk to them, and they greet me. How do I know they're greeting me? How do I know that there's any conversation going on between me and them? And what organs of perception do we have to have this conversation?
What do you understand is going on there?
One of the things that has to happen is I have to change my frame of reference with regard to the way I perceive the world around me. Because obviously, if the mystery and the magic isn't there, then how am I looking at the world? I tend to be looking at the world with the senses that I have. And those senses, which are my eyes and my ears, are feeding me information.
Yeah.
But what's happening to that information? The information of seeing goes through my eyes, through the nerves, and ends up in the brain, in the visual cortex.
Yeah.
And hearing does exactly the same. My actual seeing and hearing is not really happening from my ears and my eyes, it's happening in my head.
Yeah.
When you have a dream, you also hear, don't you?
Yes.
But you're not hearing with your ears.
No.
So you don't need your ears to hear.
Okay, but I'm all right. Yes. No, I get where you're going.
The organs of perception are not necessarily your sensory apparatus.
Right.
So you don't need your sensory apparatus in order to
be present to
present for
what's actually alive to you in your surroundings.
What organs of perception do we need in order to communicate with nature? Because we don't necessarily need our eyes and ears.
Yeah.
What other organs of perception do we have?
Oh. The heart.
Feeling.
Feeling.
So when you say, I feel, you put your hands over here. When you say, I think, up here. Feeling takes us into another space. So that's why we say, I feel good vibes. I feel bad vibes. So we do have another organ of perception. And that's our feeling self.
You can feel when a person is welcoming you.
Exactly.
And you can feel unwelcome.
Yes.
Although all the words will be, yes, please come in.
Yes.
The feeling is, I'm not welcome here.
Yes. The question of entering into a space like this, like nature, and whether you talking to the plants or the plants are talking to you, there's no difference when it comes to the feeling. Because your feeling is your feeling. And what you're feeling is something that's happening between you and what's outside you.
You're making me realize that talking is a transactional exercise, isn't it? Well, you said, are the plants talking to you or are you talking to the plants? And that actually in conversation, rather like us now, we're taking it in turns to give and receive and give and receive and so on. Whereas I think what you're pointing to with the feeling is that it's not binary, it's not transactional, it is present to what is.
The now moment. You're in the now moment, in that space of
knowing. You just know whether you're welcome or not welcome.
So you brought up another thing now, which is knowing. And feeling is different. So we have a whole range of sensory organs. We have our sensory organs up here, as it were, ears and all the five senses. Then we have the heart, which puts us in touch with our feeling self. And then there's the knowing, which takes us into another deeper space of, you could call it head and heart. So there's the head thinking, and then there's the head knowing. When we say, I feel, this is what you say. When you say, I know, it's kind of like this, I know.
Yeah.
I know. So we have all these tools.
Yeah.
The trouble is, and this is where the magic and the mystery has disappeared, is when we've gone all into the thinking head.
Yeah.
And then the moment you're in thinking, you're not in touch with feeling, so you're not in touch with the space around you. So that's why people can have this whole conversation on a cell phone, and they're totally out of touch with the world around them.
Yeah.
Or they can even have a conversation with somebody, and it's totally up here.
Yeah. Or you can walk in the woods like we're doing now and be having a conversation with yourself in your head, working out something.
Yes.
And not be in any kind of conversation with what's outside you.
Sometimes I want to think through something, and the thinking is what I call the map making. Makes maps. The feeling is territory, but the map's not the territory. So when you go into a city, it's good to have a map of it, but don't walk around with the map. You want to be in touch with the city, you need to be in touch with your feeling self. And that's why we talk about heart-to-heart stuff. And that's kind of juicy.
Yeah.
Heart-to-heart stuff. Head-to-head stuff is kind of a little bit up in the air.
Yeah.
But heart-to-heart stuff is different. The electromagnetic recording of the heart, which runs all the way through up and down the body, can also be picked up 1 meter outside the body. So while we're standing here, your electromagnetic recording of your heart is 1 meter away from you, and so is mine. Now, what does that say about heart-to-heart conversation? So we can be having a head-to-head conversation, while at the same time our heart's having another conversation completely.
Yes.
That's the dynamics and the magic and the mystery of what it is to be a human being, and what it is to walk in nature, where we are not just a body walking, we are a field of energy walking.